Hello all and welcome to Shooting Shit Uncensored. I am your host, Piers Austin. Tonight we are going live in Multi-Continental Wrestling Alliance Facebook, YouTube. We're also going live in Brothers of the Belt, Love Those Wrestling Belts, and Wrestling Review Society. Guys, tonight I'm joined by ECW original NWA wrestler, C.W. Anderson. C.W., thank you for joining me tonight, buddy.
Thank you so much for having me, Piers. It's a pleasure being here.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a pleasure to meet you too, sir. Look, just wanted to kick it off, and we were talking just in the back, just about how you fell in love with wrestling and what it was that really captured your interest in professional wrestling. Why don't you tell some of our listeners about that?
To be a professional wrestler for 27 years, growing up, I actually hated wrestling until I was about 12 or 13 years old. I was actually a baseball prodigy. And my brother, where I live at, we were watching the NWA, or he was trying to get me to watch it, and I wouldn't have anything to do with it. So one day he's like, just sit down with me, watch this one show. And if you like it, you can watch it, but if not, I won't ever ask you again. And my brother's about 3 years younger than I. So we sit down, and the match that we actually watched was the Rock and Roll Express versus Ivan Koloff and Crusher Khrushchev for the NWA World Tag Titles. And Rock and Roll Express won with, I think, if I'm not mistaken, Ricky Morton rolled up Ivan Koloff with a victory roll. And we were jumping around our living room like little kids. I was 12 at the time, and he's 9. So we were jumping around like little kids because the Americans had just defeated the Russians. Now, where I grew up east of Raleigh, North Carolina. It was the east coast of the United States for the ones that are not really sure. And NWA in my area was the hotbed. That's in Raleigh. Watching it at Dorton Arena, which was an infamous place, kind of like Madison Square Gardens is with the WWE. Going and watching those, and that's what got me hooked in wrestling. And it just kind of took off from there. Watched it growing up, and then once my baseball career fell through, I just kind of got started into wrestling.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I'm just going to, before I go to my next, just a quick question from Kevin Rodriguez, or a statement. You're actually doing Kevin's show next week, and you're going to have a lot of fun with that. Kevin's a very close friend of mine.
Yes.
He's said, C.W. Anderson, thank you so much for supporting the little guys, and thank you for giving us a chance. And yeah, I absolutely agree with Kevin. And
You're certainly welcome.
I think you'll have a great time with me here tonight, and you'll have a great time with Kevin. So, but look, moving in past that, you getting to wrestling, because obviously you just said your baseball career was winding down. How did you first get into the business? Because I know around the time that you got in, the business was still protected somewhat.
Right. It was, I got it. I did a little quote unquote backyard stuff when I was about 16 for a few months, and I stopped doing it because my baseball career took off, and I didn't want to get injured. So once that fell through, I saw one of the same guys I wrestled with at a McDonald's one day, asked him what he was doing. I was about 22 or 23 at the time, and asked him what he was doing. He said he was still doing independent wrestling, but doing the wrestling, but they had moved up. They were doing armories and things like that. He's like, "What are you doing now?" So, just working. He said, "Well, why don't you come to the show this Saturday night in Zebulon?" Zebulon is a town right down the road where I'm living right now. So I went to the show with him, got there early, got in the ring, started rolling around with him, and got that bug of being back in wrestling. And again, it just took off. I never really got trained. I kind of learned by different guys in the business. There was a little wrestling school down the road that an indie wrestler was teaching, but he never really would show me anything. He just would just get in the ring and we just do moves and things like that. And that's what I did for like the first 4 or 5 years. I think my first show was December 4th, 1993. And that's the night I got the Anderson name. Which I had no idea what I was going to be, but I had a guy that was running as an Anderson that got permission from Gene Anderson to use the Anderson name. And the guy sat me down because I kind of had the Anderson look. My hair was going away anyway, and I had a goatee at the time. I actually looked more like Big Boss Man than I did Arn Anderson. So he wanted me to do the Anderson thing.
I think we've just had a little bit of a freeze there. CW having a little bit of technical difficulties. I'm sure he'll be coming back on soon. We'll just make sure that he's able to hear us. But yeah, so CW, he's actually was just talking to me and mentioning that how he got into professional wrestling is he obviously he was never trained, but then officially trained, but was learning things along the way. So we're just having a little bit of issues with that. I'm just going to reach back out to CW. Yeah, so sorry about that, guys. So we're just having a little bit of technical difficulty. We will be back first. Now we're just going to throw out to the questions here. Kevin Rodriguez, first time I met CW Anderson was at WrestleCade, and he was always a class act. Absolutely. Little time I've been talking with CW, he's definitely proving to be an amazing guy. So he just messaged me now. He's trying to come back in, guys. So if you've got any questions, please fire them through. And we'll definitely try and get to them throughout the show. The Facebook user says, hi, Piers and CW. Just make sure, guys, to click the link above, and we can obviously get you guys into here as well. Click the link above so we can see your name, and then your name will come up on the screen. So then it'll look like this, and it won't come up as Facebook user. So, but guys, yeah, look, throw those questions out. Let's see what we can ask CW. We're just sitting here waiting right now. Now, I just wanted to probably sit and say, guys, and just to mention that we are sitting at around 414 members at the moment at Multi-Continental Wrestling Alliance. So, guys, please come and join us. And when we get to 500, we'll be doing giveaways. So, CW is back. Welcome back.
I have no idea what's going on.
That's all right, man. That's all right. So, yeah, you were saying about early onset of your career, how you got the Anderson name through a gentleman who been given the green light through Dean Anderson to use the name.
Right. Yeah, his name. The guys I was tagging with, his name was Pat. He said, come up with a 3-letter name because you had Arn, you had Ole. He was Pat. So for like the first 2 weeks of doing that, I come up with all kinds of things. I was using Ike and Cal. That's all I come up with. And I sat down with my old baseball coach, who ended up being one of my managers at the time. His name was Randy Driver. And he said, I said, I can't come up. I called him Mr. Randy. He coached me when I was little. I said, well, what can I use? I said, I can't come up with anything. He said, well, just use your initials of your real name and call you CW. So I just kind of stuck.
Yeah, nice. And when you, like, further on down the line, when you, I think a couple of years later, I read that you met Ole Anderson. And
yeah, that was after ECW.
That was after ECW. So, all right. Now, once you started meeting, like, obviously, Ole Anderson, Gene Anderson, because you wrestled in the power plant for a little while as well once you came to Indies, is that correct?
Right.
Is that when you guys got to actually meet Gene Anderson and guys like that when you were in the...
Well, Gene passed away before I actually got to meet him. Pat got to meet him, but I never did. I got to meet Ole after ECW, and that was probably one of the most miserable experiences of my life, was meeting Ole. He was very bitter. Meeting Arn was really cool. Arn has always treated me with great respect. I've met him. I got to meet Arn finally when I was at WWE, when I signed with the rebrand of ECW. And Arn's always been total class act. I saw Arn again not too long ago at the WrestleCade event here in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, that I always attend. And I hadn't seen Arn in years. And we picked right back up, was talking, and, he had put me over on his podcast about being an Anderson, talking about work that definitely deserves to be an Anderson and things like that. And it was just very humbling to hear Arn speak highly of me like that.
When you first met Arn Anderson and guys like that come from the Anderson name, did they know, like, obviously when meeting you, that obviously you having that name had set a higher standard, or were they like, the person who trained you and gave you the name Anderson, was that like a legit thing, or is that something that he sort of was trying to work you a little bit? And just
No, that was legit. And then the one thing was I couldn't job the name out. I had to show it with respect. Had to grow a beard. I had a goatee at the time. I couldn't job the name out. Had to be respectful and work that Anderson style, because I couldn't just be any jackass with that name, because it was a total respect thing getting that name. And Arn has said several times that I definitely have earned that respect to carry that Anderson name, which is again humbling hearing that from him. Because my entire career I've gotten played on from people saying you're not a real Anderson. Well, shit, none of them are. Gene's
Exactly.
legitimate. None of them are really an Anderson, and I get it because Arn and Ole carry that Anderson name, but I've done a damn good job myself carrying it. Even though my style's a little bit different, it is modeled after Arn's and a lot of Bobby Eaton, since I was a huge mark for Bobby. But I've done nothing but try to carry that Anderson name with high regards, and still 27 years into my career, I'm still doing the best I can to, support that Anderson name.
Oh, and you definitely have. I mean, your style of wrestling is very much that Anderson style, that very heavy, in your face, hard hitting. So you've got the Anderson name, and you did mention that. We were talking that with your time in the power plant. How did you find being in that environment with Sarge? That training environment. Like, was that one of the most brutal experiences that you've ever had?
I hated that motherfucker when I went through the tryout. Despised him. But today, love him to death. I owe that man everything, because he took a rough around the edges CW Anderson and molded me into what people got to know from ECW. Those first 3 days were the worst hell I've ever been through. And somebody told me you can make $1 million if you go through that 3-day tryout again. I'm like, nah, I'll just go work somewhere like McDonald's or somewhere like that, because of Walmart. It is not worth going through them 3 days again. At 27 years old, I could. It was easier, but it was still difficult. Now at 49, there's no way I could do it. But Sergeant Buddy Lee Parker and Pez Watley and Mike Winter were the 3 trainers there, and they really helped transition my career and show me what wrestling was all about, and teach me things that I just never got taught, and just kind of winging it. And I've always owed Sarge a debt of gratitude for what he did for me.
What was the reason for you leaving the power plant?
One of my last days there was about 28 students there. One of my former students, who ended up being one of my really good friends, Curtis White, he actually did a few things at WCW near the end of it. They called himself Frog. He tagged with the PG-13 against the Young Dragons and stuff like that. It was really near the end. Lodi was another one of my students that actually ended up making it there. But anyway, James J. Dillon and Paul Orndorff came down because they were agents, and they wanted to see what kind of talent they had at the power plant. They had no idea. So it was about 28 of us. It was like the guys that were the Natural Born Thrillers, Elix Skipper, Lash LaRue, Mike Sanders, myself, Johnny Swinger, guys like that. And they all paired us off and had us put on matches. J.J. Dillon, Paul Orndorff, Brad Armstrong showed up that day to watch. And one of the last matches was myself and my buddy Kurt. We did a match, and actually had the boys coming up out of their seats watching us. Because Kurt and I worked on the indies. We worked each other all the time, so we had a great chemistry. And we did a bunch of stuff that they had never seen. It was an ECW style match, and even Brad Armstrong told us right after that match, he's like, "Man, that's some straight ECW stuff right there." So we got done with the match. Paul Orndorff and J.J. Dillon come up to me and basically told me I had decent skills. My look was nothing that WCW would ever be interested in, because at the time I'm 250, 260. And they just didn't think I'd had what it take to make it at WCW. So I was really frustrated, because by then there was 3 rings. There was 3 rings at the power plant. And one of the 3 days I was there, because I'd go down for 3 days and train, and I come back and work my regular job. they'd paint one of the canvases, one of the Thunder or Nitro canvases on one of those rings. Sarge would be training Goldberg or somebody like that in one of the rings, and there'd be one ring left for the rest of us. There was a lot of times that Sarge had me training those guys, Lash LaRue, Mike Sanders, Eagle Skipper, and he had me training them, showing them stuff to do. And I'm the one that's supposed to be going there to get trained as well. So it got kind of frustrating after a while because those guys were on contracts, and I was still going down there paying my own way, not on contract. So once I got my little chance at ECW, I took it.
Yeah, no, and that's the thing. You went over to ECW, but prior to that, I just wanted to make mention. You know, you've made mention a couple of times how big the NWA is to you and what it means to you. In 1996, you won with Pat Anderson. You won the NWA World Tag Team titles, and you hold them for a little while before you were stripped of the titles because the NWA and the WWF at the time started a working relationship which lasted for 3 months. Prior to you being stripped of the titles, was there talks of you going into the WWF and doing a kind of like an invasion, being an NWA tag team with you and Pat, or was it always from the start we're taking the belts and sorry boys?
That was pretty much it. There was no talk of invasion or anything like that. And the NWA, when we got the belts, the NWA was nothing like it was when I grew up. So it was kind of before the NWA resurged. Last year, whatever it was, there was just talk, just NWA, just the name that was going on. There was nothing of like how it used to be. So just having the belts, it was cool to say, hey, I was NWA World Tag Champs. Steve Corino and I were the Intercontinental World Tag Champs, NWA, when we were in 01 in Japan. But the NWA was no ways what it used to be or what it's come back to be now.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I think that was a thing around that time when, I think it was a couple of years prior to that when the NWA and WCW split. The NWA really sort of, I don't want to say died off for a while, but sort of lost kind of a little bit of attention for quite a few years. Yeah. And I think, it sort of came back with the TNA in the early 2000s, died off again. And now it's come back to another. I think, where NWA is at now with Power, doing that sort of throwback feel in the studio. They're doing some amazing stuff. And you guys over there have an amazing group of guys working for you guys as well. So
it's awesome.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So talking about your ECW debut, how did you get in contact with ECW? Who brought you in? Was it Paulie or was it more Dreamer, Nova, one of those guys?
When you're an independent wrestler, you always hear do the drives, show up, out of sight, out of mind, things like that. Me getting my job was luck because my buddy Kurt had a tryout with ECW because he was Lodi's tag team partner on Independence. They were best friends. And, of course, Lodi being Raven's sign guy and Raven being close to Tommy Dreamer, that's how he got his tryout. So the night before his tryouts on a Saturday night, Kurt and I worked the Public Enemy. He had his tryout on a Sunday. He literally had to drag me down to Georgia for his tryout because I didn't want to go. I want to come back home. I had just started dating this new girl. So, I'm 27 years old, 28, and I just wanted to be with her. So he literally drug me to his tryout. He's like, look, Carino's there. You and Carino are friends. If you don't get in the ring, at least you can politic and meet some people. And I'm like, all right, whatever, I'll go. Because I'm a very, very shy person. I don't like being around new areas and new places and stuff like that, especially ECW, because you heard the horror stories of ECW in the locker room. So anyway, I go. I'm standing around the ring while he has his tryout. I'm standing there talking to Steve and Simon Dunn, who I was friends with. About his match lasted maybe 5 minutes, and when he got done, Nova, who's running the tryouts, looks at me and goes, "Chris, you got your gear?" I'm like, well, yeah, it's in the car because I just wrestled the night before. He said, "Run out there and get it. Let's see what you can do." So I run to my car, throw my gear on, get in the ring. I work a little 5-minute match with Simon Diamond. I get out of the ring. Nova gives me some kind of compliment about how my timing was working, and somebody sitting out in the crowd yells to Bill Alfonso and says, "Fonzie, get that ball guy back in the ring." So I kind of looked where the voice come from, and it was Paul Heyman. He was sitting there with Taz and the Dudleys. So Fonzie looks at me and goes, "Daddy, he wants you back in the ring." So I crawl back in there. Tony DeVito gets in there with me. For like the next hour, they're throwing guys at me to work out with. The doors are getting ready to open. So I get out. Everybody goes to the back. I walk in the bathroom in the back, and I am literally spitting up blood from where I was bumping so hard and hitting the ropes so hard and the turnbuckles, trying to show out. I'm cleaning my face up, and the door opens, and I look over, and it's Paul Heyman. He came in. He walks straight up to me and sticks his hand out and goes, "Hey, I'm Paul Heyman. It's nice to meet you." So I shake his hand and say, "Hey, Paul, my name's Chris Wright." He said, "Chris, where are you wrestling at?" So I tell him, I'm wrestling around North Carolina, blah, blah, blah. I said, "But I'm also a student at the power plant." He says, "Are you on contract there?" I said, "No, sir." I said, "They pretty much told me I didn't really have what it takes to make it in wrestling." And he's his classic Paul look. He has his fingers on me. He said, "What's your wrestling name?" I said, "C.W. Anderson." He goes, "I knew it." He says, "You look like an Anderson. You had the left punch like an Anderson, the spine buster." He says, "Chris, don't leave before I speak to you tonight." He said, "You're more than welcome to hang out in the back, but will not leave before I speak to you at the end of the night." So I said, "Thank you, sir. I appreciate it." So I walk in the back, and I'm hanging around. Show's getting ready to start. Jim Molyneux comes up to me and goes, "Are you CW?" I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "Paul wants to see you in the locker room." So I walk in the locker room with follow Molyneux in the back. Paul sitting there with Danny Doran, Roadkill, and Vito LaGrassa, Skull Von Crush. Introduces me to them three. He says, "You're tagging with Vito. You guys are third match. Welcome to ECW."
Wow.
That's how I got my job.
And how was that first match in ECW? Like when you were tagging, was there was it like nerve wracking or?
Oh, it was totally nerve wracking. Because here I am, this shy guy, and I'm getting ready to have a match at ECW. And Paul made sure he told them. He said, "Make sure you hit 3 finishes to finish CW off." They had to hit me with 3 different finishers.
Wow. So you had your own tag team partner turn on you at the end of the match as well? Or?
Yes. Yeah. Vito turned on me at the end. That was his normal thing. That was our thing that we did for a little while. Vito would turn on me and hit the elbow off the top, and then Danny Roadkill would finish me off. And we did that for a little while. So, yeah, that's how I got my job at ECW.
Wow, that's amazing. And that match would have been insane. Was that on like television at all, or was that just a house show?
It was a house show. RF Video sells it. It was June 6th of 1999. I'm trying to remember. Was it Rome, Georgia? It was somewhere down in Georgia, but it was June 6th of 1999 was my very first ECW match.
Yeah, so all right, that was your first ECW match. Some of the matches, and this past week I've actually been binge watching some old school ECW. I like to sort of study up on who I'm going to be talking to on the show. And one of the matches that I really stood out was you versus Super Crazy, and I thought the two different styles that that you both have, it really worked well. Like I was really impressed with that match.
He's one of my favorite people. He was one of my favorite people to work at ECW. We had a fantastic chemistry together. I trusted him to no end and vice versa. And they always kept throwing us together because we would have a war together. We did one in Cincinnati, Ohio, and I remember that night because I cut myself real deep, and I have a picture of the blood. It literally looks like I have a spider web of blood on my face. We did one in Tallahassee at Florida State University where we didn't break the table on his moonsault, so he turned the table upside down. I think it's on the WWE Network. He turned the table upside down with the legs sticking up, and I'm moving the table as he's moonsaulting off the second rope. And God was watching over us and him because the table turns and the legs turn, and he literally goes in between the two legs and almost impales himself.
Oh,
it was you couldn't have timed that more perfect. And then the one our last one was at the ECW arena, to where I got a standing ovation from the ECW crowd. He Frankenstein me off the top to a table on the floor, then moonsaulted on me and finished me. And when I got done, I got up because that was the thing when I started getting standing O's from the ECW fans, they were chanting "C fucking dub." That was my thing. That was when I got in my I Quit match after that one. So
I remember that.
Yeah, well, I knew when I stood up at the arena and I was getting those chants, I was like, okay, I finally made it, because my very first arena match was tagging with Vito against Danny and Roadkill, and students were there because I was debuting at the ECW arena, and they said they were sitting behind people after I finished my match, and the people kept saying, "Oh, well, this guy will never make it in ECW." So that was always good to say that I made it.
And that's the thing. Like, I remember, and we were talking in the back before we came on, that, you know, how for me it was hard to get some ECW because it wasn't on television here, and to get a lot of wrestling here in Australia in that time, it was very hard to get. So I really had to do a lot of searching to try and find it. And one thing I saw from the ECW crowd is it took a lot, and I mean a lot, for guys to really win that crowd over. Especially in the ECW arena, where it was like some of the most rabid fans in the world.
Oh, they were brutal. And you had to be on your A game every night with them guys.
And I think it's like, it's not that the crowd has high expectations, but I think it sets the bar for wrestlers that are going into that building to wrestle. There's that vibe, that's that feeling that you have to step it up a couple of notches. You know,
absolutely.
You know, so it's kind of like the Madison Square Garden of independent wrestling, really.
Yes.
So,
yeah, every time I would go in there, the nerves would be extra high. The butterflies would be, you know, it'd be like 100 butterflies in your stomach, because you know you were getting to walk out. And I hated talking on the microphone. I never could do it. I was so nervous and so self-conscious about myself. And my very first live promo in ECW was at the ECW arena. It was against Randy Anderson the night Simon Diamond and I and Swinger formed our alliance, and I squared off with Bobby Eaton. And I remember sliding into the ring, standing up, and I'm shaking in my boots. I'm shaking like this. I am so nervous. Of course, you had that show must go on and mentality, but you know, a little inside thing. I'm sitting there and I'm shaking. I'm so scared because I didn't know how to talk on a microphone.
Yeah, right. And how did you do that first promo? How did you get the words out?
Killed
it. Yeah.
Once I started, it just flowed from there. But just once I started with it and just getting going, then it was okay.
Yeah, right. And some of the matches that you really had in ECW were something else. I mean, like, I remember seeing the I Quit match you had with Tommy Dreamer. You know, the matches that you had with Piers as well. You know, were something else. Who were some of your favorite guys to work in ECW?
Danny and Roadkill. The only one I didn't like working was Mike Awesome. He was an idiot. I hated working Mike Awesome. As strong as he was an idiot, and he couldn't remember matches. Here he is, our champion, and I'm having to call the match to him the very first time I worked him. I was like, what the fuck? You know, this dude is supposed to be our champion, and I'm having to call the match to him because he can't remember it. I love working RVD. Danny and Roadkill, I was married to him for so long. They hold a special place to me. Carino's my best friend. So working him, you know, working him on pay-per-view was great. Tommy and I formed a bond in the ring. I loved working Tommy, loved working Jerry and Lynn. I really couldn't narrow it down to one. Tommy was so over. Jerry was so over. Roadkill was so over. You know, Danny would walk out, Roadkill walk out, and to get that pop, them two together were great. Nova was great to work with. Kid Cash and I had some great matches together. And if you had to, I couldn't narrow it down to one, man. We were such a family, and so we were all so pumped for each other. You know, we'd watch the opening matches, whoever they were, and main events, and we'd all be sitting by the monitor and watching them, just cheering. There was no backstabbing, nothing like that. If you had the match the night you were first match, great. If you were main event, perfect. But I really couldn't narrow it down to one. I really had a blast working every one of those guys, except for Mike Awesome. Even Balls and Axel. I love working Balls and Axel. I hated the chair shot. Got a lot of concussions from the chair shots, but Balls and Axel were great to work. New Jack was fun to work with.
Yeah, how was New Jack to work with? Was it like I've heard some sort of mixed reactions with New Jack? You know, sometimes people saying how light he was, but other people saying how heavy he was in the ring. So, did it depend on the night with him, or was it just some people have their opinion?
Jack and I are still tight to the day. And I saw him not too long ago. We rode the roads together over the summer. Jack never hurt me. He always took care of me. If you respected New Jack, he respected you back. If you pissed him off and you were a jackass, he would put you in your place. But for the most part, like I said, Jack was light. Jack took care of me. His stuff looked vicious, but New Jack never hurt me, not once. We had some classic matches together. We've actually had matches to where he's hurt me like by accident, with the staple gun, and we laugh about it. You actually stapled me in the head with a dick one night, and one of the staples were stuck, and he didn't know it was in there. I watched him clear the staple gun out, and there was one stuck up in there. And when he stapled the head of my dick, it was supposed to be empty, and there was a staple left in it.
Oh, is that the most painful injury?
Well, yeah, that would hurt. I blew my back out and things like that. But I'm telling him when he did it, because he's dancing around. He's like, "Get up, C-Dub, got the next spot." And I look at him and said, "Jack, you have stapled." I look up at him. I said, "Jack, you have stapled my dick." And he looks down and sees that 1.5-inch staple sticking out of my trunk. And he lays down beside me, and he's hurting because, as guys, when somebody gets kicked in the balls, we feel it.
Yeah. 100%.
So he lays down beside me, and while he's holding his cry, he's laughing his ass off, apologizing to him. He's like crying. He's laughing so hard.
Oh, so man. That's funny in a painful kind of way.
It's funny now, 19 years later, it's funny, but it wasn't funny at that time. But I know he did. No. I know he did, because I'm sitting there watching, because the night before he worked Vic Grimes, and he hated Vic Grimes. So he left the staples in for Vic Grimes. Me, he took them out, and I saw him take them and shake it out and get all the staples moved, but there was one stuck in the staple gun.
Yeah, I remember how you mentioned that he hated Vic Grimes. I saw
I despised him.
I saw the match that they had in XPW, that California promotion that was around in the early 2000s. And that scaffold match, man, that was like, whew,
he called me the day before. He said, "Make sure I watch it." He was on the route. He said, "See, make sure you watch this match. How much I killed that fool." He hated Vic. But Vic was an idiot when it comes to that stuff, because he had no respect. And he would say he'd do things like, there's a lot that went on with him and New Jack, and those scaffolds and stuff like that. It caused his own demise. But yeah, Vic had a lot of heat in the locker room for a lot of things. So, Jack took care of him.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's how that sometimes the wrestling business works,
Oh, it does.
The boys police themselves, so, but, and that's the thing, like I've sort of heard stories. I'm not privy to the actual, direct truth of it, but obviously you had been. So, thanks for clearing that up.
Sure.
So, as we were talking before, CW, so we're actually streaming in Brothers of the Belt and Love Those Wrestling Belts. So, and we talked about my love and passion for championship belts. You actually just sent me a photo, which is you holding Arn Anderson's NWA television title. Are you a fan of the belt yourself?
Oh, the belt, yes. I mean, I've been privy to be able to hold some beautiful belts in my career. Last the AML belt that I held here in North Carolina, the people that run WrestleCade, I was their champ for about 6 months. That belt's freaking gorgeous. If you go on my Instagram, which is everything on my social media is ECW Anderson. So you can search me on Instagram and you can see the AML belt. It's freaking gorgeous. I was a Pro Wrestling International champion for here, which travels around on that belt. And that's probably the heaviest belt I've ever had. The belt was so heavy, I couldn't wear it around my waist. I had to carry it on my shoulder. It was so heavy. It's the heaviest belt I've ever held. I think it was like 40 pounds or something like that. It was something unreal. Love Orange. My favorite was the one Tully had, which I think was the red belt. Tully's, it was red. I love the USA tag belts that the Midnight Express had, which were blue. But yeah, I'm a huge fan of the belt, especially when they make them different,
Yeah.
bigger, and you got a little. What belt did I have in Japan that I really liked? It was Intercontinental. I think it was at the time it was a U40 belt, like under 40, that I had. I really loved because it had all the different states and different countries' logos on it and things like that.
Yeah, right. Well, if you ever wanted to get any belts made, let me and Kevin know. We know a couple of guys that can, if you ever wanted to sort of get belts that you've held, we can definitely put you in contact with some people.
I might have to do that because do like I did in my my trophy thing is have my softball bats and stuff labeled up there that I've held throughout the years. It'd be nice to have belts that I held to for when I retire, and I can show because I don't have kids. But like my nieces, when they have kids and stuff like that, they can say this is what Uncle Chris used to do for a living.
Yeah, no, hit me up or hit Kevin up.
Yeah.
We can definitely put you in to connection with someone for that. No problem at all. So, getting back into the wrestling, so when ECW sort of started to fade out in the early 2000s and closed its doors. What was next for you there? Did you get contacted by WWE? Did you get offered a tryout to come in when ECW closed up?
No, actually, I didn't. They didn't really like because of my size. Because at the time, Vince was only you had to be a bigger name than what I was at the time because I hadn't really had my breakout. My I Quit match was basically my breakout, and then the damn company folded. So, I never got any contact. I really didn't know what was going to be next for me. I went into like an 8-month depression spell because all of a sudden, there's no more ECW. I was in denial the whole time that we were going out of business because I was like, shit, this is ECW. You can't go out of business. And I worked, 7, 8 long years to make it in this business. And here I am jobless again. So luckily, Carino contacted me about going to Japan. And that's how I ended up going to Japan and staying there for like 7 years with 0-1. But yeah, WWF, at the time, WWF, they never had any interest in me.
Yeah, right. And did you know what was happening with with ECW at the time? Was it like the writing on the wall that the company was folding, or was it starting to I don't know? Obviously, Paul showed up on Monday Night Raw. Were you aware of what he was going to be doing, or did it just sort of happen?
We heard there was rumblings. Because the whole time I was there, we were having trouble getting paid. We were getting speech after speech of why we weren't getting paid this week. The one night I worked Rob Van Dam in front of the largest house show we ever had in Canada, and we were supposed to get made up for a month's of pay. We were a month behind in pay, and Paul gave us this long speech of why we weren't getting paid this time. And part of it was, it was in Canadian money. He always had some kind of excuse of why we weren't getting paid. But he never once told us that we were going out of business. He said he would drive a cab in New York City before he would let us go out of business. And we knew we were folded when we turned on Monday Night Raw one night, and he was sitting there commentating with Jim Ross. He never called none of us and told us we were done.
It just sort of happened. That was it. Done deal.
That was it. It was it. There was a lot of times where Tommy was running the show at night. Most of it, near the end, Tommy ran ECW because Paul never showed up.
Yeah, right.
So we didn't know where it was at.
Was that Paul just more looking out for his own interest, you think?
I don't know. There was always, me and Paul got in this huge Twitter war last year or year before last because he had heard an interview I did over Thanksgiving about saying that he was, he always told us that he was out there at the USA Network trying to get us a deal. And come to find out, he was out there filming the movie Rollerball. Whether that's true or not, that's what we had heard. I didn't come up with the shit. Other people come up with it. And they told me. And it's funny that I got the one that got blamed for it when more higher up the people than me were talking about it. And that's how I found out. We did an interview last year where myself, Roadkill, and New Jack are sitting down filming for High Spots, and New Jack starts telling the story. Had no idea that he and I never spoke about it. And New Jack was saying the same thing. Of course, he never said anything more about New Jack. But, whether that's true or not, I don't know. That's what I was told. And it doesn't matter now. Hell, the company's been out of business since 2001.
Exactly.
Um,
It's nearly close to 20 years.
yeah. All I've ever asked is just be quite honest and tell me that we were done. You were our boss. I could have went back to WCW, but I didn't, because even the night of my Massacre on 34th match, which was December, it was the pay-per-view before that. He got down on his knees in front of me while I was changing and asked me, was I leaving him? I said, what are you talking about? He said, there's rumors that you're going back to WCW. I said, I don't know who told you that shit. I said, Paul, I'm loyal to you. You give me my job when WCW didn't want me. I am loyal to you and Tommy. You guys made me. And I would have never left. I was loyal. And it ended up biting me in the ass. But I went down with the ship.
Yeah.
Just like a lot of us did.
Well, that's the thing. And that's why I think the loyalty in the ECW locker room, but also the ECW audience as well, that you guys had. It's like there were so many guys. And you look at Tommy Dreamer as obviously the guy that was leading that ship.
Yeah.
He had opportunity after opportunity to jump to WCW or WWF at the time, but always remained loyal to that ECW brand. So I just want to throw it out to our viewers tonight. If you've got any questions for CW, please feel free to fire them off. We'll be able to bring your name up and your question on the screen. Anything at all, guys. Let's see what you guys have to say. So obviously then you go into leaving ECW, then you start working back on the indies again. Now, to get booking straight off the bat out of ECW, was that relatively easy because you were obviously advertised as being an ECW performer? Or did you find
it? It was easy. North Carolina, where I live at, is very popular with independent wrestling, so it was quite easy. I went to England for the first time, like a few months after ECW folded, so it was quite easy. And then they know you're getting kind of desperate because you're not on TV anymore, so your money goes down, and they're trying to get you back to what you were working for before you became, quote unquote famous or quote unquote on TV, whatever you want to look at it. So then that shit won't fly. So some things have never changed. But yeah, it was quite easy. And then there was a few years, I got kind of frustrated with the business and didn't wrestle for a long time. I let myself go.
What was it got you frustrated with the business?
Been in it so long, and I was in a bad relationship, and that didn't help either. Not being on TV anymore, working for pennies almost. It's just a culmination of things. And at that time, it was 10 years ago. So I was 17, 18 years into the business. And it was it's amazing what a bad relationship would do for you when you're trying to enjoy what you love. And I was in a bad place in my life at the time.
And that's the thing. I think if you're in a toxic situation with one thing, then everything else can really turn around. It does. It culminates until a point, and it almost leads to a massive amount of depression, and that's the thing. You start disliking things you love or love doing. Yeah. So now you're back in contact with the NWA, and you've been performing under that. So 1 second, we just got a question from our audience. Whose idea was it to form the Extreme Horsemen? From a Facebook user.
I worked for Dusty Rhodes' promotion, TCW, down in Georgia. And it was myself and Steve Carino. Man, he had Manny Fernandez, Barry Windham, Lodi, a couple young indie wrestlers. And that area was really, really old school. Like, they really believed wrestling. And one night, Dusty sits myself, Barry Windham, and Steve Carino down, and he goes, Steve and I had the idea about the Extreme Horsemen and Simon and I back at ECW, but we never really got to do it. But he had pitched the idea to Dusty, and Dusty kind of played it off, and then Dusty got thinking about it. So anyway, he sits us down one night, and he goes, I have an idea. He says, I want to form the Extreme Horsemen with you three. He said, you know, Barry, you came from the original Four Horsemen. He said, Steve, you and CW came from the Extreme, so let's form this group called the Extreme Horsemen. So one night, Steve and I are wrestling Dusty and Dustin, and we handcuff Dustin to the ring, start beating Dusty up. And I want to say RF Video, or I think High Spots maybe still has the video, to where fans are hitting the ring. I remember kicking a woman in the face to get her out of the ring.
Wow.
Barry Windham slides in and makes the save, powders Steve and I, and Barry picks up the chair and he's like, come on, come on, come on. And he turns and waffles Dustin with it, and then jumps on Dusty and starts beating the shit out of him. And that's the night we formed them. And then I remember walking to the back, and one of the security guards who helped set up the ring, who was in on it, like he knew this was coming, was getting in Barry's. He was getting in Barry's face. He was like getting agitated, and Barry headbutts him and breaks his nose. And
Oh,
Barry looks at me and Steve and goes, "Well, I guess he won't do that again." And kind of laughs about it. And we're like, "What the fuck?" Like, so yeah, we formed it. It was crazy. The people, man, they had the cops had to escort us out. It was that old 80s type feel, and I was like, "Oh, we're gonna get murdered in this bitch." So
you don't go to Dusty's
yeah.
promotion and do Dusty like that.
Yeah, exactly. I'm a funny story with that, and guys, you have to, for all you watching this, you have to excuse me. I come and visit my parents, and I'm on my laptop, so it's deep in the countryside. When you hear it, see it while I'm on my laptop, so you have to bear with me. I'm not at home, but anyway, I worked Dusty Rhodes for the first time one night, and we was a bull rope match. And on the outside, I'm CW Anderson. I'm just a badass wrestler, you know, getting ready to beat up Dusty Rhodes. On the inside, I'm 12-year-old Chris Wright going, holy shit, I'm about to wrestle Dusty Rhodes. So they strap us to the bull rope, and Dusty's beating me around the ring. He's like, all right, CW, it's your turn to get the heat. Hit me with a cowbell. I clobber him with that cowbell to where he goes down. He goes, God damn, CW never hit me this hard. I apologize. That's one of my first encounter with Dusty, you know, working him. And he never, until last time I saw, he's never let me live that down about hitting him with that cowbell. I mean, I waffled his ass with it. Oh, God, I miss that man so much. But yeah, Dusty Rhodes is the reason of the Extreme Horseman. Because we got to do it at MLW, which was a lot of fun too.
Yeah, I remember seeing MLW for like when it first sort of came out back then. You know, Steve Corino was the champ there for a while.
Yep, Simon and I were the tag champs. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and you guys really were, like, I think that you were the modern day Four Horsemen. You know, obviously with the Extreme Horsemen, and you know, I think with the guys that you have there, with yourself and definitely Steve, you've always had that traditional feel. Like even back in ECW, you know, seeing the style that you guys wrestled in, it was very much that territory 80s feel when I watched those matches. So
that's, you know, our little group, in the aerobic period, our little group has been very close and unique. And Steve and I have only let a few in the Extreme Horsemen because we're very, very peculiar over who comes in, because we just won't let any jackass to come in. You know, we brought Just Incredible in for War Games. Barry came back. Then we introduced one of Steve's students during mid-2000s, Ricky Landell. And then recently we brought, he was a Ring of Honor top prospect. He does a lot of work around the Carolinas. And he actually did a cowboy gimmick and with Bobby Lashley, and he hit Bobby over the back with a guitar. His name is John Schuyler. We brought him in. He's one of the regulars for the Extreme Horsemen, and then Damian Wayne and Preston Quinn. So we've always had that, like you said, that old 80s mental wrestling. We've never wanted somebody that flips and flies and does all the crazy shit. We want somebody that has that ground activity, so to speak.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, you know, we talked about Steve Corino throughout this interview. And one young independent wrestling star that I'm really excited about, and some of the stuff I'm seeing, is Colby Corino, Steve's young son. I think Colby's about 21, 22 years of age. Have you had much in the hand of training Colby at all, or have getting in the ring with him, or is that all?
I actually got in the ring in September for AML, and we had the match. When we got done with the match, the commentators took a breath. It was like, oh my God, you can hear them on commentary. My God, what a match! It's like being in the ring with Steve. He looks like young Steve, and Colby's gotten very grounded, and he has a very, very bright future. Colby's so freaking good. I love Steve to death, but he's way more athletically gifted than Steve ever was. Steve was a great wrestler and could talk on the mic, but Colby is, come on, I just fucking, Colby's very talented, very gifted.
Would you say he's got the proverbial it factor that a lot of the people say? Do you think Colby's the guy that could make it in the WWE and have a successful career? So I think we're just having some problems with CW. He'll be back with us very shortly. He is in a bit of a bad area reception-wise, so he will be back with us momentarily. But we are talking about his career, and just recently we were just talking about Steve Carino's son, Colby Carino. So Steve Carino, he was a ECW legend, also former NWA world champion, former AWA world champion. Okay, we got CW back. We're just talking about young Colby Carino. Obviously CW's good friend Steve Carino's son. I agree with what you're saying. I think Colby definitely has some amazing talent. I loved watching his match with him and Jimmy Lloyd. I think that was about a year ago. Those guys really tore it up. I agree with you. From what I've seen of Colby, I really enjoy his work and I see a bright future. Do you see him being able to go to somewhere like WWE or AEW and having a successful run there?
I think Colby fits better at the AEW. Colby can go anywhere he wants to. He can go back. He can go to New Japan. He can go to AEW. He can go to MLW. He can go to the Performance Center. He can go to the Performance Center and be a part of NXT. So Colby can pretty much go wherever he wants. He's got a few. He's got a little fine tuning, but once he gets those things, and it's not much. When I stepped in the ring with him, there was not much that he needs to work on. And having Steve Carino as your dad is only going to help because Steve can mold him. Because Steve's at the Performance Center. Steve knows what they're teaching. So, and plus Steve's got one of the best minds I've ever been around. And Steve and I have traveled all over this world and just sitting and listening. I still, like tonight, I went to him tonight for ideas on my I Quit match with George South next weekend. And Steve and I still bounce ideas off each other. And man, Colby really, really, I see big things for him in the next few years.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and that's the thing. So at the moment, you've made mention you've trained a lot of guys like Lodi, who was in WCW, and you've had a hand of training other guys as well over the years. Is when wrestling finishes up for you, when you decide to finally hang the boots up, do you see yourself being a full-time wrestling trainer?
I would love that. I was talking about this the other day. I don't know if I can completely walk away from this business. It's been such a part of my life. From the time I could remember till I was 23, I was a high-level baseball player and then transitioned right into wrestling. So just leaving wrestling and not doing anything, what am I going to do? Play golf? I can't see me just doing that. I gotta do something. I think wrestling. I'd love to be a trainer, an agent, or something like that. I've done. I love the agents at NWA. You got some of my peers that are agents there. I would love to do something along those lines, or trainer. I think I've had my own training school before, so I would love just being involved. God damn it.
Yeah, no, that's and I think as well the amount of time that you've been in the business as well, you'd be a great asset to any organization. Talking about NWA, where you're at now, where do you see yourself fitting in the NWA roster? Are you there to obviously be there for the long haul? Are you there for a short term? What's your plan career wise in NWA?
As long as they want me, I'm there. Long haul, the longer there, the better. I love being a part of the NWA. It's a great locker room, a great atmosphere. Um, Dave Lagana, and Billy Corgan are really good with trying to bring that NWA feel back, and the studio feel is fantastic. It's it was weird, not weird, but it was something to get used to. Because it's been a while since I've done studio wrestling, but I really like being a part of all the guys there, from the champ, Nick, all the way down to, new guys like myself. It's a great, it's a great locker room. There's no egos. Everybody's there to help each other. And it's one of the better locker rooms I've been a part of. It's refreshing to be there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And for me, obviously growing up, I didn't really get a lot of the studio type wrestling. As I got older and I was getting tapes and DVDs and stuff like that, I really got to see it and be exposed to it. And now that NWA's back and it's so readily available all around the world, I don't miss a week of NWA. And one of the things that it's interesting to me, seeing that studio setup. And look, this isn't me. Like, I don't think it's bad. It's just, for me, it's different. Is not having the entrance music. So when I see some of the wrestlers that are coming to the ring, I feel like not having the entrance music, there's something to me, like, because I'm so used to, like, since growing up, seeing wrestlers come out and walk into the ring, it's something different that I'm not used to. And like I said, I don't think it's bad or indifferent. It's just different, and that's something that I really.
I think that's what wrestling needs now, is something different, and it's not a bad different. It's weird ourselves, because I remember the first time I walked out, it's like they just said, "All right, CW, go." I went, "Wait, what?" No music, and you walk out, and you're just there. But it was comforting that when I walked through the curtain for my very first time, which was that little 3-way match I did, and the people went, "Holy shit, CW Anderson!" I started getting ECW chants and things like that. That kind of relaxed me, because there's nothing worse, as I've walked out sometimes and people are like, "Who the hell is this?"
Oh, that would be rough. That would be
it
rough.
Is this little rug, you're walking out, you're like, "Don't you remember who I was?" Just along those lines.
and that's the thing. I've heard a lot of guys say that when they've gone out to do like a big, thing, that's the thing that they fear the most when they're sort of coming into a new promotion, or hitting the big time or whatever it is, and then they're worried about when they go through that curtain. They're just going to hear crickets, and
that's the worst. And people, because you can hear every person's tone of, "Who the hell is this?" You're a judge. Every little negative thing you hear, and you just got to kind of tune it out. But there's nothing worse than walking through and just, like you said, hearing crickets.
So we got another question from a Facebook user. NWA to me is number one. Glad CW is a part of it. Who do you still want to wrestle? So I think what they're asking is, who's on your to-do list, so to speak? Who would you like to wrestle with? I'll open it up, not just NWA, but to anywhere in the world, any promotion. Who would be like 3 guys that you'd love to face, dream opponents?
One time with Yuji Nagata, I wanted to face him because I saw some really classic matches with him and Masato Tanaka. Because Masato Tanaka and I had some great chemistry when I was over in Japan. Let's see. I would love to. I'm trying to go to promotion to promotion. NWA. I'd love to square off with Nick Aldis one time. I think he and I could have some classics. If I had WWE, I've already fought AJ Styles. I've already fought John Cena. I think Drew McIntyre and I would have some really good matches.
Yeah.
At one time they were going to do it when WWE got brought back to ECW. Paul was trying to push for a program with me and Kurt Angle, And yeah, Muta would definitely be cool because when I used to see Muta over in Japan, I saw him at WrestleCade this past year. And the guy I'm wrestling next weekend, George South, actually faced him at WrestleCade. He's got a great picture of Muta. Yeah, he's got a great picture of Muta spitting the mist in his face. But I knew Nagata was one of my classics for the time being in Japan. I got to work Shinya Hashimoto, who was a legend. I actually got really close with Hashimoto. One time I wanted to work Benoit. I think he and I would have had some good matches. Yeah, but definitely Kurt Angle and I would have really good matches with our styles.
Oh, I think you and Kurt Angle would have had one of those epic matches. You're talking about the ECW sort of resurgence in WWE, or the WWECW.
Somebody actually I wanted to wrestle. I saw not too long ago was Chavo Guerrero. I've never squared off with Chavo, and I've known Chavo for a while. And I love him. I said, dude, when are you and I going to be able to square off and work? He said, you name the time and place. But I think, I really want to work with Chavo. I'm trying to make my email company see if they can make that happen. Because he worked for us flat not too long ago.
Chavo is amazing, and he's always been one of my favorites. To me, he's always been one of those guys that had plenty of charisma, could go in the ring, great on the mic. You know what I mean? Like, he always had the thing, but for some reason, like, I feel like he was never really given a solid chance, in WCW or WWE. He had some decent runs, and I don't want to take that away from him, but I just feel like they never really pulled the trigger on him.
A lot of people haven't seen me in a long time, and the CW manager, I know you probably can't really tell, like right now, but I'm down to.
Okay, guys. We're there. Yep.
You there? We had a really bad ice storm here. We had a really bad ice storm last night here, so that might be part of the problem. I mean, a really bad one. But he's the guy now. I'm, ECW. I was at 270 pounds, 260. Recently, I've dropped down. Right now, I'm at 210. I'm back into the same waist I was when I was in high school. I'm back down to a 34-inch waist. I even wear biker shorts now. I wear the singlet, but I do wear biker shorts because I've lost all my stomach. So I look, I'm literally 210. I wear a medium shirt now. I don't know when. I don't think I've worn a medium since high school.
That's awesome, man. That's
so
awesome.
Yeah, I've got myself in really good shape. That's why I feel like I can hold up another run. And I know if the people have seen me on NWA. The past two times I've been on there, you can tell a difference.
Oh, absolutely. You can see that you're probably, the most leanest I've probably seen you, ever since I've started seeing you in ECW years ago.
Yeah.
So
I haven't lost to hit my head size, but that ain't ever going anywhere. My head's still huge. So,
bro, look at mine. I'm the same. Like, you can see my body is just like that, and then this big fucking bearded head.
I know. I told Steve something about using thumbtacks next week in the I Quit match, and he said, on my forehead, he said, "Do you realize how many thumbtacks it would take?" I was like, "Shut up!"
What a fuck! But that's the thing. Only a close personal friend could say that, and you'd be like, "Not like."
Yeah, exactly. It's like, fuck off.
So a couple of things, CW, before we let you go, is that I'd want to do. So, firstly, I noticed that over the years you've collected tattoos. I'm a big tattoo fan, and obviously tattoos in professional wrestling go together like peanut butter and jelly. What tattoos have you got there, man? And do you have anything wrestling related?
Let's see. A lot of it has to do with my life, so I don't know how good you're going to be able to see these, but I always done by an artist of mine. His name's guy's name is Derek Easton. He does a lot for NWA. He does lots of Young Bucks stuff. And Terry Powell has drew some of my latest stuff. But let's see. This one is, since I play chess and I collect chess sets, I have an Extreme Horseman tattoo, which is this one right there. That's cool. And all the glass, broken glass, was free-handed by the artist that do all my tattoos. Then you have my Transformer Rottweiler, since I've gone from being an enforcer to a Rottweiler. Since I have Rottweilers, that's my dog, but it's a Transformer logo of a Rottweiler. And then this is my baseball number 09. And then you have a bat, which is in a cross, which is my Christian faith. And then I have the Japanese Yakuza, or excuse me, not Yakuza, that's wrong. The Japanese kamikaze and the American flag to represent my travels. And then you have my CW hands.
That is awesome, bro. That is
then
really
on the
cool.
back in kanji is fighting spirit.
That is awesome.
So and then, like all this broken glass was all free-handed by my artist.
That's some really cool work, buddy.
And then my next one is going to be right on my forearm, and it's going to be my saying that I got from the movie Gladiator that I've used. You know, what we do in life echoes in eternity. That's going to be my next one.
That is awesome, man. That is awesome. So next I want to do is, this is a little bit of a fun thing we can end on. It's a bit of a game.
Sure.
And it's called Guess the Aussie Lingo. Okay, so as everyone knows, I'm Australian. All right. So if I say to you, CW, have a good arvo, mate. What am I wishing you? If I'm saying have a good arvo.
Arvo?
Yeah.
Holy shit. Maybe either day or match.
Having a good arvo would mean like have a good afternoon.
Afternoon, okay. I was close.
Yep.
Day.
If I came up to you and said, "Hey, C-Dub, give us a squiz at your belt," what would I be saying?
I'm guessing squint has something to do with look, like squinting. Look.
Yeah, it means have a quick look.
Yep.
Chuck a sickie.
Holy shit. Why don't you just ask me to spell banana? That one you got me on. I have no idea.
So chuck a sickie is to call in sick. So have a sick day.
Okay.
I'm just going to go outside and have a durry.
Is that a smoke?
That is a smoke. Okay. All right, next one. I've been up since a sparrow's fart.
Oh my God, I think around here that's the same thing as shit. Up before they have rooster crows. That's like early first thing in the morning.
Yeah, first thing in the morning. Okay, so and next one is rooted.
That's just the word, rooted?
Yeah, so I could say it like this. Oh, mate, that fucking thing's rooted.
That's probably like, if it's here, rooted around here, it's like really in the ground, stuck. It ain't going anywhere.
Yeah, so you can, if you say it like, "Hey, that's really fucking rooted," that means like it's broken. It's broken. It's fucked. Like it's done. Or you can say it like, "Oh, mate, I had a big night last night. I am rooted," which means like I am so hung, like just fucked.
Gotcha. The only word I know is bugger. I actually got a sticker for that.
Yeah, so also we'll do one more. I'm going to go down to the bottle-o. Where am I going?
Is that a bar?
A bottle-o is like a liquor store, like a bottle shop.
Okay, here they're called ABC stores. Just like that's the okay.
So I've been but yeah, look, that's basically Guess the Aussie Lingo. CW, tell everyone where they can find you, please.
Everywhere on social media is ECW Anderson. Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Find me there. Message me. I always get back to all you guys. It might take me a day, but I will get back to you. Everybody has watched this. Everybody has followed me in the past, seen my stuff, recently connected with me and found out who I was through YouTube, whatever it is. I appreciate every one of you because, look, I'm just a little country guy from a town of people less than 400 people. And that's where I grew up on a horse farm. So I know what it's like coming from a small town and taking care of the small guys. So thank you, everybody that has been a fan of CW Anderson.
Thank you very much, CW. Guys, make sure you'll be able to catch CW Anderson on this week's episode, or next week's episode of the War Room with Kevin Rodriguez. You know where to find that over on WRS. CW, thank you so much for joining me this afternoon. If you just hang 5, we'll disconnect and we'll have a catch up just in the back. Guys, thank you very much. This has been Shooting the Shit Uncensored. I'm Piers Austin. This is CW Anderson. Good evening.